Welcome to the Friday edition of One's World, and for the moment I'm going to continue my survey of the streets of Phnom Penh. This time I'm just going to look at a very small part of the place where I live. It's called Sen Sok, and I'm going to look at the streets just a little bit north of Russian Federation Boulevard. You can see a map here. Russian Federation Boulevard is this wide 6-lane east-west boulevard, and then above it are a number of very small streets. And the first thing I want to emphasize is the difference between a boulevard, which in Khmer is called Mahawitai, and a street, which is called in Khmer Plau. And the streets are normally numbered, and the numbering is really just nuts. It doesn't follow any kind of sequencing like it would do in Manhattan, for example, where let's say, Fifth Street is just north of 4th Street, just north of 3rd Street. So it doesn't work that way here. You've got maybe 148th Street, and then the next street will be 146th Street, the next one will be 140th, and the next one will be 138th, with no reason why there aren't any in between. And they're also not blocks. They're sometimes north, south, east, west, but they can also be diagonal, they can be curved, they can be all kinds of things. Now the boulevards also have numbers, but typically people use the names for them. So Russian Federation Boulevard, Mao Zedong Boulevard, and so forth. You can see on the map here, Russian Federation Boulevard is actually 110, but nobody ever says 110. And the streets are all named street then number, which is based on Khmer grammar, which is that you have noun first, then modifier. So it's street 19, street 112, rather than the English way of saying 112th Street or 104th Street and so forth. So I want to just show the difference between boulevards and streets here. Not a particularly complicated difference, but I also want to show a little bit more of Sen Sok, where I live, because it's a very mixed district. In Khmer, in the division of the city into administrative units, there are first of all the whole city, which is kind of like a province, but it's called a municipality, so it has a special name. It's not called a province. It's called it's called the capital, really. And then it's divided into Khan, and the Khan in English we would perhaps call section or district. The Khans are divided into Sankats, which are sometimes translated in English as quarter. The Sankats are divided into Pum. Let's see if I can get that correct. I got one of my students corrected me. It's a aspirated P at the beginning, so Pum, which is usually translated as village, which is a bit strange because it's not really a village. And the village and the Pum are divided into Krom, and Krom is a block. Now those differences aren't really manifested when you actually walk around. You never know that you've crossed over from Sen Sok into Pusan Che, for example. There's no sign there, so you just have to know. And Sankat the same way. You have no idea which Sankat you're in. But it was pretty evident during the lockdowns of COVID, because then they had to decide which part of the cities they were going to lock down and for how long. And depending on the severity of the outbreaks, they might lock down just one block, one Krom, which is what happened to me, my street is a krom, and they locked down my block, my street, and that was it. I couldn't get out. But they might also lock down a pum, or a whole sankat. They never lock down a complete khan, because the khans are very big and sprawling and not easily identified as such. But they did lock down whole sankats at time, and it was off and on. Sometimes they were red. That meant you could not go in or out under any circumstances. Or they were orange, which means that you could go in and out under certain circumstances. Or they were yellow, which was slightly more lenient. You could go in and out to get food and so forth. But anyway, that's the way the city is administratively divided. But today I want to talk about the difference between boulevards and streets. And it's pretty obvious. You know, the boulevards are these big, wide, usually 6-lane east-west or north-south highways with traffic lights. I mean, they're not like open roads. You do have to stop and start. And during the rush hour, they're very, very busy. In the morning, between roughly 7 and 10, you don't go very fast, and you're stopping a lot of the time. And again, between 4 and 6 in the evening. So people going to work and coming home, they use the boulevards because the streets do not connect up very easily east-west or north-south. So there's not a lot of traffic on the streets, but you just can't get any faster going that way than by going by the boulevards, although I've tried it once or twice on my bicycle when I was commuting to the university. So I want to look at Russian Federation Boulevard at the beginning, and then I'm going to take you down some side streets to show you what my district looks like. And basically it's sort of middle. There are a fair number of expensive houses here. My street is mostly expensive houses, but there are also some very poor sections too, and somewhere in between. So the places I'm going to show you today are mostly at the lower end of the economic spectrum, but with some newer ones and with a bigger price tag to them. So let's get started. So here we are on Russian Federation Boulevard, right outside the Royal University Campus 2, where I used to teach. And the first thing I'm going to look at is how you cross the street. I think I've done this before, but I'll do it again. See, it's very busy. This is it's a little before 9 o'clock, so there's a lot of commuter traffic. So I'm going to go up to what is supposedly a crossing, but nobody stops at it. And so here's the traffic. Lots and lots of motorbikes and lots of cars, and it's the cars that are the problem. If it was just motorbikes, I would just step out into the traffic. But the cars are a different matter. I don't want to challenge a car. So I'm just watching. What I'm doing is I'm waiting until I can see a gap, and then I'm going to proceed out. And what I'm trying to do first is to see if there's a gap in the lane where I'm standing right now. And looks like there's one coming up. Yeah, okay, so I'm going to step out into the traffic, and I'm going to cross over. And once people see me moving, then they get a little bit more generous. And at this point, a car saw me and slowed down. Didn't stop, but slowed down enough for me to get across in front of him. And so now I'm going to get to the other side. Now, the side that I just crossed is a side going into the center of Phnom Penh, so it's a lot of crowded because the commuters are going in. But see, this other direction, it's a lot less crowded because these are people coming out of the center of Phnom Penh. There's not that many of them, so I can pretty easily get myself across. And there we are. Now I'm going to just journey down Russian Federation Boulevard and take a right as soon as I can, because I want to get into the area that's north of Russian Federation Boulevard, which I haven't shown you up to this point. Although when I showed you the markets, I did show you one that was a little bit north, but the area generally north of Russian Federation Boulevard in Sen Sok is fairly poor, poor to middling, let's say. So let's get up to the corner and make a turn. All right, here's the corner, and I'm just going to turn right here, and you see pretty much immediately, first of all, I mean, almost no traffic. The streets, especially during the rush hour, are not particularly crowded. There'll be some motorbikes for the most part, but they're heading towards the boulevards for the most part. And so here we've got, I don't know what that one was, but there's a laundry here spelled wrong, laundry. There's quite a few laundries in my district as well. I don't use them because I've got a washing machine. And you can see it's a fairly narrow street. Not much on it. We'll get to some more vibrant areas in a minute, but this is just getting into the area. A lot of cement wall and not much else. Weeds. I think a little bit further down here, yeah, coming up, there is a shrine that's been discarded. There it is. Very common. You'll see, particularly in monasteries, you'll see shrines like this discarded in piles, as well as old lotus flowers and other gifts that have been dedicated to a ghost or a god or goddess or something, and now is just garbage. So here we are. We're coming up to a cross street. Now, see, I don't know this area at all. I don't walk here much. So it's a kind of a rabbit warren, and I do know how to get in and around, but I don't have much reason to go here. And I looked to the right here. You see, don't see anything there terribly interesting. Now look, you'll see that the street is pretty torn up. It's got nominally got a bitumen service, but it's broken in a lot of places, and there's no pavement. There's just this dirt and gravel place to walk, which is one of the indexes that it's not a very well-to-do neighborhood. If it were, the street would be much better paved, and there would be a proper sidewalk. Let's see, what have we got here? We've got a oh yes, a common kiosk here selling drinks and snacks. If they're all over, and another one, plenty of competition for these little kiosks. And I go to one typically when I'm not going to a supermarket, and so I would say pretty much everybody has the one kiosk that they go to and that they know the people. Okay, so we've got some broken down yards here. Another kiosk. Next to it is a place to eat. So they've got some cooked food there. Another kiosk, and you can see how broken the road is. I have a mountain bike with very fat tires that I ride nowadays because my racing bikes just can't tolerate these broken roads. There's a new building just going up, a hairdresser. Not sure. Oh, this is a restaurant, open air. Nobody there right now because it's 9 o'clock in the morning. They would have been there earlier for breakfast. Yet another kiosk. So you can see the streets go north and south and east and west in this particular neighborhood. So I decided, okay, I'll take this one going north. But you can see that if you were commuting to the north, it would be difficult because your street would come to an end every 100 meters or so, and then you've got to turn right and left, and then find another street going north and south, and again turn right and left, and it just slows you down. You can see here some flowering trees. It's one of the hallmarks of Phnom Penh is that there are always flowers around, and I hope I've got enough footage of them. I did try to. The artifact that you see in the video has to do with the fact that I handheld this camera, and then I ran it through Filmora's filter, which gets rid of the shake, but it also adds a little bit of artifact. When I do the final videos, that will all disappear. I'll use my gimbal. I didn't want to use a gimbal this time because it would be really obvious that I'm photographing people or videographing people, and I really didn't want that. I wanted to just be able to not exactly look anonymous. I can't look anonymous in this part of the town. I'm like a foreigner, and that's it. But wanted to do my best, and if I handheld the camera, I didn't have to look through the viewfinder, which means that people didn't necessarily see that I was actually photographing them. Okay, so we're coming up to a T-junction, and I think I'm gonna look right and left and make a decision. Yeah, okay, it's a dentist of all things, not one that I'm particularly attracted to. Turn left, and so you can see again the streets are really poorly maintained. Look, that just all rubble and broken stones and potholes. So even if you decide that you want to go east-west or north-south on these streets, you're not going to go very fast. You're going to have to negotiate the bad surface. And here's another thing: these are all residences, and they're not particularly expensive, but they all have expensive cars. Some of them are their Mercedes or BMW, or at minimum like Toyota. Toyota's a very big seller, and many of them park their cars inside their houses, in the lower level, in the sitting room. And passing some more flowers. Oh yeah, and I tried to capture some of the flowering trees. That was it's kind of a magnolia, but didn't really make it there. And some of this greenery is root crops. Probably volunteers more than anything else. So there's a lot of greenery, and so at this point I'm going to leave things alone. I notice here, there's a huge pile of trash there. You'll see there are certain designated spots on every street where you can leave your trash, and it gets picked up 2 or 3 times a week. And now we just passed the place where I'm going to stop and buy a Coca-Cola, and I think what I'll do is I'll insert my my discussion with the owner in here, asking for a bottle of Coke and asking how much it is, and then paying. Chẳng bằng Coca-Cola, moi đốp. Coca-Cola, moi đốp. Slide on that. Okay, Joran. Talks bye. And then what I'm going to do is journey back to Russian Boulevard, cross over again, and we'll see how that goes. And then after that, I will wish you a happy weekend, and please tell your friends to like my videos, to subscribe, and have a good weekend. I will see you on Tuesday.